Welcome back, guys. Thank you for tuning into our channel again. We're going to be doing another reaction, this time to a Jubilee video by the title Jordan Peterson. So I'm not really familiar with Jordan Peterson. Or familiar?
I love Jordan.
So, yeah, we're going to react. Enjoy.
Hello there, I'm Dr. Jordan Peterson. I'm a clinical
He's a
psychologist,
doctor.
professor emeritus at the University of Toronto, an author, a podcaster, public speaker, and today I'm surrounded by 25 atheists.
I'm surrounded.
Does he go to college
My
campuses
first
like the
claim,
other guy?
atheists
Oh, wait.
reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting.
Okay.
That's a good statement because Rich, my friend that drops me off at the bus stop, he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in heaven or hell.
Okay.
He just thinks everybody's crazy.
Everyone's crazy. I'm imagining he's sourcing materials from scientists who are... No?
No.
I don't know then. Who are they then? Just conspiracy theorists?
Yeah, other people on social media, his friends. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Peterson.
How are you doing?
So this claim here that atheists don't know what they're rejecting. My background is in studying to become a traditional Catholic priest, daily mass, daily rosary, going on long retreats, deep into the magisterium and biblical hermeneutics, like I was thoroughly in it.
Well, you obviously feel that you missed something when you were practicing for the priesthood. Your aim was off then. So there's always the possibility that it's still off now.
How is it that you can claim that people don't know something that you know about their life despite not having met them?
Well, it's obviously a generic claim, just like the atheist claim that there's no God is a generic claim. In your case, it would have to be specified more, and I'm not claiming to understand what was going on in your mind.
The kid, he kind of defensive, like off the bat. I don't know.
I could see that, yeah. I could see that.
Of what constitutes God, let's say in the Judeo-Christian tradition, and they've often been hurt by someone who was religious or by the religious enterprise or perhaps by God himself, so to speak, and that's left them with an animus.
But I think that you have a reductive view of what atheism is. You've defined religion so broadly to include any sort of having aim in life, any sort of cultural archetypes, or having a metaphorical substrate. And atheism to you is a very specific type of like three people in the world that are these Raskolnikov type of, they want to get away with a perfect murder. It seems like you have the reductive view of what an atheist is. It seems like we both have a reductive view of what the other side looks like, to the point where a conversation seems incoherent, and not just incoherent, but not in the way that the average Christian understands Christianity to be.
Do you have a
Okay,
problem
let's
with...
pause there. Sorry, you've been voted out by
Awesome.
the majority.
I don't know.
This guy, I'm waiting for him.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh.
Nice
He
to meet
almost
you.
made it.
Nice to meet you,
David.
David, good to see you.
Tell me everything that you know about the Polynesian deity Lono, L-O-N-O.
I don't know anything about the Polynesian deity Lono.
So you're rejecting something without knowledge of what you're rejecting.
I'm not rejecting it.
Do
No
you
more
be-
than I'm
do
rejecting
you believe in
anything that
Lono?
I don't know anything
Do you
about.
believe in Lono?
I
Do you
fail to
believe
see
that
the
he is a
relevance of
deity
that.
that exists in the world?
Atheists are rejecting something that they don't understand.
But he's an atheist.
Yeah. And now he's saying, oh, do you believe in Lono and this and that?
Yeah.
And then he's like, he said no. And then he's like, so how can you reject something you don't understand?
So he's validating this guy's point. He's validating Jordan Peterson's point.
Somewhat, yeah.
That's odd for him to do. Okay.
I didn't even think about it like that.
Question, which is, do I reject everything that I'm ignorant of? Because that's your presupposition that undergirds your argument, and unless you can prove that that's valid, then there's no point.
My question is quite simple.
Yeah, but that doesn't
Do
mean
you
it's
believe-
formulated accurately.
Do you believe that Lono exists? Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer that question for the reasons I just described. You already insisted that if I reject something, that if I'm ignorant of something, I reject it. Do you think that everyone in the world has to know everything simultaneously for that to be valid and
That's
true?
so funny.
I think
This
in
guy
order...
thought he was going to come here with one question and get his ass. And now he doesn't know what else to say.
Yeah. Like, I feel like he thought of that for like a really long time. He's like, nail him with this. And
Yeah.
he's going to stutter.
order for your
Answer that
argument
question.
to be true, in order for it to be
That's
true
fair.
that we atheists don't understand what we're rejecting, then you need to also apply that to yourself and to Christians and to Muslims and to any other person on this earth, where if you don't understand what you're rejecting the belief in, then you can't reject the belief in it. That's the implication of your.
That's what he was.
Yeah, that's what he just said.
That he's saying that's what Jordan Peterson was. Why is he like kind of validating it? I think he's kind of validating it because he's like, his defense is, oh, you know, he's going in kind of like somewhat with the preconceived, like atheists don't understand what they're rejecting, and saying to Jordan Peterson, well, what about you? You're rejecting, you don't understand. I would just ask, like, why didn't anyone ask, like, well, tell me, Jordan Peterson, what do you feel that atheists don't understand about rejecting God or Christianity? Like, I need something from him, Jordan Peterson, to make that clear.
But he can't really use scientists or whatever. He has to quote something from the Bible or
But that means
stories like that.
But that would mean nothing to an atheist. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that. Why are you quoting something from the Bible when you know that going into it, this conversation is one-sided in regards to another person not believing?
Pew Research studies suggest that atheists and agnostics actually know more about religion and about religious stories, the foundational principles, than believers.
That's because they're more religious than they think they are.
Okay. You can.
They're concerned with deep matters, and one of the defining characteristics of someone who's oriented in a religious direction is that they're concerned with deep matters.
Okay.
In fact, it's virtually definitional.
Right, but they also have to identify with a religious tradition and accept the foundational stories that go along
Well,
with
that would mean more that they're sectarian than that they're religious. And most people, for example, in the United States, deny that they're religious but accept that they're spiritual.
Pause there. You've been voted out by the
panicking.
majority.
My next claim is that
And
morality
lose.
and purpose cannot be found within science. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I guess since you said morality and purpose cannot be found in science, it would just depend on like what you're referencing. If you're saying the description of your psychological preferences would be considered within science, sure. But I don't think that you have to say that it comes from science in order to be like an atheist. As an agnostic atheist, I don't know if God exists and I don't believe that a God exists. And the only ones that I would really reject would be like the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good, perfect notion of God that plenty of Christians like prescribe.
I give credit to atheists mainly because they're right. I mean, how can you believe in something you've never seen?
That's true.
Like you've never seen a ghost, so how can you believe a ghost?
Yeah.
No. I give credit, I guess, for that part for the atheist.
So do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
You added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right, so if you believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it, and you die for it. That's
Yeah.
what I mean by that. It isn't something that you say. It isn't something that's associated with logical consistency. It's not declarative. It's not propositional. It's not a figment of your imagination. It's the presupposition of your attention and your action. And you're either fragmented, in which case you worship multiple gods, or there's some unity at the bottom of it that makes you an unstoppable force.
Okay, so
The
you're
thing
saying
with
that you
this
don't believe.
guy is that he talks quick.
Yeah, he does.
So since he talks quick, people think, oh, he's doing a great job. So smart, this and that.
Yeah. Like, it feels like he's trying to process everything. Jordan Peterson, whoever's trying to rebut him, trying to like process it really quickly and then come up with a rebuttal really quick.
Yeah, but he's not really coming up with a rebuttal that can shut the other down.
No. He's just trying really hard.
Yeah, he's just talking too fast.
Believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay. So then,
How would you define belief? Something you say?
can I explain? Like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone like threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right? Like, I think you would do that too. You wouldn't lie to save your
Don't be
life?
so sure.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like
happened
save
is
your
clinical
children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think lying would save them.
No, can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying
I
to
know
protect
the
them,
example.
would you lie to like the Nazis? If
I
they're
would have
asking?
done everything I bloody well
I don't know
could,
if
so
I
I
agree
wouldn't
with
be in
that.
that situation.
Because I don't remember the book, but I never read it. But my mom read this book about like it was about a school. I don't know if it was about like fine or whatever. I don't think it was, but it was about something like that. And I think it was a real story. But, like one of the students, might have been like caught by the shooter, and she still said like gun to her head, she's gonna die. She still said, yes, I believe in God. I believe in him," and he shot her and he killed her. So I don't agree with that. That like everyone like, oh, you're gonna, because it's religion, of course you're gonna lie to save yourself, because clearly that young teenager did it.
Yeah.
So that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true.
Would you
to begin
lie?
with. It's a hypothetical, and it's
You
not
can't answer
answerable.
hypotheticals?
No, I can't answer a hypothetical like
What?
that because
Did
it's
you eat
far. Look,
Did you
don't
eat today?
play games.
I'm not playing a game. I'm just
Yes,
asking if
you
you ate
are.
it.
I just told you
Hypothetical.
I would do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation. By the time you've got there, you've made so many mistakes that there's nothing you can do that isn't a sin.
Being born in Nazi Germany and trying to protect people that you care about, like there could be a Jewish friend that you have and you want to protect them.
I think you should
have
just
them in
give
your
up.
attic.
Hypothetical. What is that relevant? Are we in Nazi Germany right now?
I don't know, but this is what he does.
It's a basic hypothetical. Like I could ask you.
It's just a basic
Yeah, yeah.
hypothetical.
Like, you-
where
Yeah,
where
that's
you're-
like,
you
if you-
put Jews' lives at stake in Nazi Germany, that's just a basic hypothetical.
Obviously, you would lie in that scenario to save their life, but you're like not trying to answer this question for some reason.
I just told you why.
Are you anti-fascist? Like, so you're
Why are
anti-fascist?
you asking that?
Why
I was just
how did
asking,
we get
just
to that?
clarifying. But like, okay, again, you're not answering this hypothetical because you know it shows that you clearly would lie to save
I'm
someone's life.
answering it in a
Obviously, that's
manner
not what
you
truth
don't
is.
find acceptable.
Obviously, 'cause I care about
you're-
truth.
I wouldn't be in that scenario.
Obviously, right? Logically, because that
No.
already happened. Like that's in the past. You don't have a time travel device. We're bringing this.
Even the others are saying like, "What the fuck? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?"
I was like,
You would lie to save someone's life. So again, you do believe it
Oh
to
my
be
God.
true in that circumstance, even though you like lied in that scenario. So
Not
clearly,
without
that's
just
the
wants to be right
context
so
that I
bad.
put
Yeah.
it in.
you were not willing to die for it. You
said-
were not willing to let other people die for it. So that's not what you see to be true then, seemingly.
You're doing exactly what I said you were doing at the beginning of the conversation. You're generating an impossible, restricted, hypothetical with no precursors to back me into a
How is
corner.
it possible? Is there something contradictory about it? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
and they let him talk. Oh my god. They're like, yes, he did a wonderful job. Nazi Germany. Put yourself in Nazi. Like, why?
Yeah, why?
Why do I have to do that for you to be right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Purpose can't be found within science. I mean, I feel like I can. Can you agree with that? I feel like I can. Because science is supposed to be fact. I don't think it's trying to give us a purpose. It's just giving out facts.
Claim is that everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it.
Hi,
Good work.
thank you.
Hi there.
I'm Zena. So I want to start off with like defining terms.
Yep.
How do you define worship?
Prioritize.
Prioritize. So almost like having a preference over something rather than the
It's a
other.
hierarchy of preferences.
Yeah.
And you use it to direct your attention.
Right.
So whatever you're attending to, you're worshiping.
Right. So I've kind of become a little bit familiar with your idea of like this value-laden hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of posit that at the bottom of this hierarchy, or you could call it top or bottom, I
Yeah,
suppose.
right.
At the bottom of this hierarchy, this foundational priority in your life is going to be considered God.
That's
is that
right.
correct?
Yes.
Right. I'm trying to imagine a situation in which could there be that someone has a priority at their foundation that is different from someone else's?
Oh, definitely.
Essentially, there's not one God, but there are multiple gods, and these gods exist in some realm of truth. It's true that this person has one God and it exists.
Well, that's what Rich was saying, but I told him, I said, there's only one God. It's just different religions have different meanings, different names. Like you guys have Jesus, we have Allah. Somebody else has a different name.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one God. People just have different names for him.
Yeah. Yeah, probably better to
Exactly.
think about it as multiple values, but that there's a hierarchy of values with something at the bottom.
Right, but at the
Or
bottom is
top.
God, and there
That's
are
a definition, yeah.
Yeah, so at the bottom is God, and
Yeah.
there can be multiple people with different conceptions of God, and they're each valid in being called God. So there are multiple gods that exist.
It depends on what you mean by valid. So far, so good, but it depends on what you mean by valid, because I would say that some foundational conceptions don't play out when they're implemented. So if you put the wrong thing at the foundation, you end up in hell, for example. That's what happens in totalitarian states.
Religion, these moral tenets and religion, right, and God exist as
Talking about the previous subject. But
Yeah,
you're right.
aren't they?
Yeah, it's morals. Morals are shit.
good.
I don't know. They're focused on stuff that I feel like is a pre-layer to the prompt that he had, or the prompts that he had. I don't know.
I picked Xena because I think she asked genuine questions and wasn't trying to win.
Okay, well, hello again.
Hi there.
My claim is Jordan Peterson's framework for understanding Christianity is probably not the one that the Bible intended us to use. In regards to the way that you interpret the Bible, I don't see. You have said in some circumstances that there's not a way to
Him interpreting the
say
Bible,
whether
not
or not
him, like-
ontologically the historical claims made by the Bible are true. Like, for example, the story of Cain and Abel. You have said that this story is like a meta-truth in the sense that it exists all throughout time, culturally. And the way that you define meta-truth, I don't see a distinction between that and like a metaphor. If you can't say that there are historical facts being said in the Bible as stories that weren't really said with much ambiguity, how can we say that we can understand the Bible in the way that it's meant to be interpreted?
That's why I picked you. You ask intelligent
Yeah, that was
questions.
a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. What do they say? By their fruits you'll know them.
Okay.
Right. Well, so one of the things I look at is the impact of what I'm doing. Right. And so I know a lot of evangelical Christians, a lot of Catholics, a lot of Orthodox Christians, a lot of people from other faiths. And they've told me, like many of them, that they found my interpretations very helpful and that it deepened their faith. And so that's interesting because I wouldn't have necessarily expected that to be the case. And I've also talked to thousands of people who've told me that they came to understand the foundational stories of their culture better as a consequence of listening to me, and that they did everything they could to sort out their lives and that it worked. That's many different pieces of evidence that all converge on something like the practical and conceptual utility of my approach. Now, is it the same? There's a lot of approaches to biblical interpretation historically, and what I'm doing is possibly less new than you think.
Like, interpretation can connect you to your conception of what your faith is. But if it's the quote-unquote interpretation that God does not intend, that can lead to a plethora.
That's certainly the case. That's why the medieval Christians were so concerned about heresy.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they felt, and that's why the Catholics objected so much to the Protestant Reformation, because they believed that the fractionation of Christianity would result in an indefinite fractionation, right? Well, and that's exactly what's happened.
Right.
So yeah,
Big
that's definitely a
word.
problem.
What he's trying to say was that he was talking about Catholics, then, well, I guess in a way started to have their own of God, and they broke away, Catholic or whatever, and created like Protestants. Like, I'm trying to give like a simple to everyone. And they feared, like, Catholics feared that happening, growing. One is going to create essentially their own of God and not following what might have been the core and the true to them. Were, they were like kind of like committing like a sin and crime for becoming or believing in Protestant.
We need to know how we should interpret the things that the Bible says, and the
Many
things,
ways.
right, but like if we interpret
Sometimes poetry, sometimes history, sometimes fact,
But for
sometimes
example,
metaphor.
the reason why it's important, right, very important, is because, for example, we can talk about something like God says, I believe it's like 1 Corinthians 15:17, something about how belief in God specifically as someone who resurrected, or as someone who died for our sins, is important, right? But we have to look at, if we can interpret that as just like, you have to believe that God is a symbol of sacrifice. That is different from believing that
That's
there was an
another
actual...
thing. Remember how people were saying that, oh, you know, God came down, this and that. I mean, I believe in God, but like I always say this: if He came down once, why can't He come down again?
Yeah. Well, I know for Catholics that he came down then, like all those thousands and thousands of sacrifice on the cross, resurrect. And then now, what they believe is that we're waiting for the second coming. So all these years of, it's just basically having all these thousands of people waiting for him to come and present himself to us, show himself down on earth again. That's what it I think is what Catholics essentially believe, if I'm correct.
But if you really wanted to, he could come down tomorrow.
Like to try to make people more like,
yeah.
I
feel like these people would believe that.
I mean, that makes sense because, and that's where I can kind of understand where atheists come from. Like, if they're talking about things like that, like, why didn't God come? Why isn't he coming down to show himself? In an age where a lot of people have doubt and are away from religion, why wouldn't he just himself? Which is a valid question. But then it also makes you think, then if he's not showing himself when he most likely could and probably make everyone believe in him, how real could he be?
Person named Jesus Christ who died on the cross for our sins.
True.
So if you believe one and not the other, that can be the difference between you going to hell and you going to heaven. So if we cannot make, we cannot say that we know whether or not certain historical facts in the Bible happen, like even as just like events, like because the events matter, because again, God dying for our sins on the cross was an event. If we can't say that we know these things happened, these things did or didn't happen, this then leads us to kind of like the conundrum of how do we know what we are meant to believe, what the Bible intended for us to believe, and this can be very, very important to like our fate. Do you see what I'm saying?
I've got no disagreement with any of that. What sort of response do you want from that? You pushed me beyond the limits of my knowledge.
Really?
Well,
I think that's...
there's so many things you can't know. It's the case that forever, when people have been interpreting religious stories, they wrestled with exactly the question that you just described. Mm-hmm. When is it fact? When is it poetry? When is it music? When is it metaphor? When is it ritual? When is it time-bound?
But what I'm saying is that your interpretation of the Bible, if you cannot tell us, again, if these historical events happened or not, that can be the deciding factor in if someone is like damned to hell for eternity or if they go to heaven, right? So that's why
I don't concern myself so much with that particular question. That would be something that would stem more from an evangelical viewpoint, and I'm not putting that down, by the way. Mm-hmm. You're asking me a question I really can't answer.
Okay.
I'm not claiming even that my interpretations are canonically correct. I can only tell you the consequences of having released them into the world.
To bridge this kind of understanding between fact and destiny is like an important question that the burden is on Christianity to answer, and specifically interpretations of Christianity. And if we can't do that,
why is the burden on Christianity?
Because it posits, right, that this interpretation, right, is going to be a way to understand God. But if it's faulty, right, that can
what evidence would you accept?
That would be an interesting question, because I've seen people try to answer the question, and I've never really been moved, because I can always attack and then kind of get to this point where the answer is I don't know.
Well, here's an
Let's
answer.
pause there. I'm sorry, that's time.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the ride.
Well, I definitely picked the right person.
Thank you.
That was very good.
Thank you
Really,
so much.
very good. I don't like talking to win, but there were portions of all the conversations that were truly productive, and that it's instructive for people to see the distinction between a debate that's aimed at local victory and dominance, let's say, even of ideas, and a discussion that's predicated on mutual exploration and establishment of like a harmonious understanding and peace.
Jordan Peterson, out of all of the kind of theists that are on the internet, he's one of the better ones in regards to just like being genuine as a person. But I do feel like he does a lot of, I guess, wordplay that can make it a little bit difficult and kind of just muddies the waters in regard to what we define as Christianity and atheism.
Well, I mean, I did like the Zena.
Yeah.
Zena was definitely had a lot more of more in-depth question conversation. No, is it real? Is it not? But again, like, you don't know until on your last leg, and when you die, that's when you know the answer.
I hope there's a heaven and hell.
That would be great.
I don't want to be in an endless like infinite black area for too long.
Yeah, like, I think it's also hard for like humans to actually kind of draw that conclusion. Like, once we're dead, we're dead. Like, it's over. I mean, it is kind of scary to think about. So I can understand how religion gives a lot of people a sense of hope, and it's something that you carry on with you, values, and how you raise a family, like, your whole life. So to have that, like, I feel like if we had a definitive answer of religion was no longer, like, we knew for a fact religion was fake, non-existent, God is non-existent, I feel like almost in a way the world would go into chaos. Can't believe it. Like, so when we're gone, like, when we die, we die.
Yeah.
That's really hard to wrestle with. So I think it gives people hope. It gives people faith, and it kind of guides them into dealing with something as big and as certain as death. But I mean, you still don't know, So
Everybody believes in something different.
yeah, and it's a complicated topic. So at least Xena did well.
Yeah.
So good for that, and Jordan Peterson held together, which is good. Well, that's it for this video. Definitely impactful, more in depth than maybe previous videos we've done, but that's religion. So, thank you guys for watching. See you guys in another video. Bye.